Okay, in today's video I am going to take a look at the Building Control Act. If you're buying a house or selling a house, then you need to be concerned about building regulations. And the building regulations are set out in the Building Control Act of 1990. But there has been recent developments in the last couple of years. The Building Control Act has been updated to July 2021. Now, I was contacted by a building control officer with, I think it's South County Dublin, a chap called Alan Lawler. He kind of flagged up to me some very useful resources in this whole area. He also flagged up to me some issues that are going to arise or can arise from time to time. The first thing you need to understand, what is the building control legislation framework? And I'll give a link to this particular handout. It's a PDF from the local government. Essentially, it's an official document, as it were. It's the National Building Control and Market Surveillance Office is involved in it, I think, or have published it. But there's a huge amount of frequently asked questions and very, very useful information about the building control regulations, building control legislation and so on. But there's a couple of key things that I want to just flag up with you. What is the building control framework? And the building control legislation framework is the Building Control Acts 1990 to 2014. That's the act there to which I've referred at the beginning of this video. But you'll see there's two broad sections which flow from the Building Control Acts. One is the building regulations, and building regulations are the actual regulations for different activities, different areas of construction, and how fire safety is supposed to be carried out, how construction is supposed to be carried out. Building control regulations then. The building control regulations deals with the question of commencement notices, 7-day notices, fire safety, certificates of compliance, the building control management system, whatever you call that new system, the BCMS. I have a video made about that. I will stick it up here someplace and you can have a look at that as well. Just in relation to the building regulations, let me show you from my experience and from my career, short-lived as it was as in construction and in property development, and I was involved in property development. I had this home bond book, and the home bond folder contains all the regulations, so the technical guidance, and in it there you'll see, you might be able to see the various regulations, for example, to do with damp-proof courses, trays over lintels, window openings. But the other regulations are there: pre-concrete, first floors, and building BER ratings. But the various regulations, there's the do's and don'ts, as it were. It's hard to see it there, but look, if there is building regulations, they should be governing how your construction job is carried out, or any property that you might be going to purchase. And for that reason, you're going to need a certificate of compliance with the building regulations, and you'll need a certificate of compliance from an architect or an engineer of compliance with building or with the planning permission. So building regulations, building control regulations, as you can see there on the screen, very, very important. But when it comes then to the building control regulations, you'll see that the building control regulations apply to new buildings, extensions, material alterations and so on. And they regulate commencement notices and 7-day notices, fire safety certs, disability access certs, maintenance of registers, fees, and the statutory registration of building control activity. That's the BCMS system. Again, I'm going to put a video up there and you can have a look at it. It explains that BCMS system. But you'll see there from the screen, failure to submit a commencement notice is an offence and will have serious consequences which cannot be regularised at a later date. You may have difficulties in selling your property if you cannot prove that the statutory requirements relevant to the property have been met. So I would reiterate that property must be, any work that's carried out on it must be carried out in accordance with the building regulations. You will need a certificate of compliance with building regulations, and the new system then makes reference to commencement notices and so on, building control, and it is an offence and could have consequences if not regularised at a later date. And in relation to that, the chapter contacted me, Alan O'Reilly, the building control officer, flagged up a number of issues. One is the implication or consequence for a homeowner where the works have commenced prior to validation of a commencement notice, resulting in the commencement notice being invalidated. In other words, work commences on the property, but the commencement notice has not been validated or filed or submitted. From a building control point of view, the works are not covered by a commencement notice and that may well have legal implications for the homeowner, which is obviously a question or a problem for the homeowner and the purchaser of the property. Secondly, there's the implication of signing a document, or a commencement notice rather, and knowing that the works have started. That's a statutory document, remember, and you're signing a commencement notice to say that you're going to commence the work, and yet the work has already commenced. So strictly speaking, you are falsifying a statutory document, and I haven't gone into it, but there's probably penalties for that. There will be penalties for that, and you could probably be prosecuted. Finally, he flags up the issue there of the attic storage room as a habitable room. Now, I've done a separate video about loft or attic conversions. You should have a look at that. It's worth a look, and it deals with the whole question of the particular guidelines from the department in relation to fire safety and attic conversions, essentially. But he makes the point there, Alan O'Reilly, the implications of using attic storage room as a habitable room in the context of claiming through your insurance in the event of a fire. This is a big grey area. I would add to that then the difficulty with the attic conversion, perhaps including a couple of bedrooms, and you are buying the property and there isn't proper planning or there isn't a certificate of compliance with building regulations. Your difficulty there is whether you can count those rooms as habitable rooms. You probably can't. That means that your 4-bedroom house, which the bank is going to have valued as a 4-bedroom house because they don't know, is essentially, from a legal perspective, probably a 2-bedroom house. So that whole area, loft conversions, attic conversions, is very, very important. There's no problem converting an attic for storage, but there is if the rooms are going to become habitable. The question of planning permission arises, the question of building regulations, fire safety and so forth arises, and you will need certificates of compliance with planning and building regulations. But I would recommend very, very strongly, there's a lot of information in this, and I'll just show you the beginning of it, and I'll put a link underneath on my YouTube channel. I'll put a link. This is the National Building Control and Market Surveillance Office. There's frequently asked questions there. There's a huge amount of them, but it's to do with the building control regulations, building control legislation, etc., etc. What is the building life cycle, strategic management cycle? What are the regulatory considerations in building construction? What's the building control legislation framework? What is a commencement notice? What are the 4 commencement notice types? What's a 7-day notice, etc., etc. This is good stuff, very, very good stuff, very, very useful. And this document, you can see, is 134 pages long. But if you're serious about your building, if you're serious about doing things right, if you're serious about understanding and knowing what you're doing in terms of developing or converting attics or putting on extensions and having property that's saleable and so forth and legal and lawful, well then you should probably have a look at this. It is useful. Hopefully your architect or engineer, though, I mean, let's face it, you shouldn't have to really do it. Your architect or engineer should be absolutely familiar with this. But it is important, and the commencement notices that you now have to use and file and submit and so on, they're very, very important as well from a legal perspective. Hope you find this video useful. If you do, I'd appreciate if you give it the thumbs up down below, and thanks to Alan O'Reilly, the Building Control Officer there in, I think it's Dublin County Council, for flagging up these resources to me and raising a couple of issues. But this is a good resource. As I say, on my YouTube channel, I'll stick a link underneath it, the video, and you can have a look yourself at the frequently asked questions and so on. Thanks for watching.